Hello, Harry. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful, and thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Henry, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, my man, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest it in yourself. And oftentimes, my man, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, Harry, some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it, and I went my way. But you see, Harry, just recently I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. And immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did. And it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. And not just mangoes now, Henry. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day, and I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Henry that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, your insights, the impact your work is having, and how you're offering your solutions, my man. This stuff's so beautiful. And just before I sent you that request, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Henry is doing. And not only me now, because, I don't want to look selfish, and even with the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Henry. So thank you so very much for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
No problem.
Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Henry, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. Not just knowledge alone, but the application of it. And you say, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Henry on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Aaron, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Henry got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Henry, my man, over to you.
Okay, well, I started writing seriously. I've been writing since I was a little kid, but I started writing seriously in 2010. It was connected to the financial crisis that happened in 2008, 2009. It really kind of shook me into the realization that you only live once. If there's something that you really care about, you should pursue it. Uh, and so I started writing, and I lived in a community at the time right outside of Chicago that also had a lot of other different types of artists. In addition to writers, they had actors and sound engineers. And so I met an actor and a sound engineer who agreed to help me make my novels or my fiction into audiobooks. And so those are the early books that you see in my uh, library. Uh, Escape from New Orleans and Dinner Invitation. I wrote those in 2010, 2014. And so here we are 11 years later, and I'd finished a novel length work of fiction, Coliseum, but I no longer live in the Chicagoland area. I live near New York City. And so here I managed to connect with another community of actors and a sound studio. And so they helped me turn the novel Coliseum into an audiobook. And that's how. And so currently, as I mentioned in my note, I believe to you or in my profile for sure, I recently joined Substack, uh, which is a platform that a lot of thinkers, scholars, writers are on. And it's also very powerful. It's a very powerful hub from which you can broadcast a wide variety of content. And so on my Substack, I have information about the series that I'm writing right now, which is called The Council of Nobles. And the first novel, I'm serializing that novel in audio form on the Substack. So every time I'm done with a scene, I record it myself and I publish it as a podcast on Substack. And so that's where I am now.
That's amazing. And that's creativity at its peak. And that's a smart one also. Well, thank you for the wonderful stuff you're doing. I love it. All
Sure.
right. So let's begin first with your book, Coliseum. So what inspired you to write your thriller novel, Coliseum?
Well, I actually had the idea in 2010. I had two ideas in 2010. Coliseum was one of them. And at the time for Coliseum, I had the idea of, because at the time the United States of America felt like it was at war with itself. I mean, it's just really it was chaotic. It was very tumultuous. And it seems like there were people relish the idea of just basically fighting with another side. And that's what Coliseum is. It's a television show where on one side you have gladiators on a team called the Confederates. And on the other side, you have gladiators on a team called America, the Americans. Now, in 2010, I had that basic idea in one character, and that's Smiling Jack, the producer of the show. But I didn't have a story for him. And I also knew that a TV show like that, especially in the United States of America, would inspire serial killers and people who would do all kinds of acts of violence. And so I also had a serial killer character that was inspired by the show, who then would need to be found by authorities, by national authorities. And so I knew that all of these elements needed to be in there, but I didn't have FBI agents. I didn't have intelligence specialists. I didn't even have a name for the serial killer at the time. I only had one character, and that was Smiling Jack. And I didn't have a story for him. So, as I said, I did have another idea, which was at the time it was the American Fathers, but now that's the Council of Nobles. And all of the characters came to mind. I'm still writing, the novel I'm writing right now has all of those characters in it. And for the most part, they're exactly today as they were then. And so I developed that idea, developed the story world, published the audiobooks that I mentioned, Escape from New Orleans and Dinner Invitation, and two other audiobooks with all the characters. And then I wrote a draft of Emperor. But by now I had really updated the story world and the concept. After I finished the draft, I started to get the characters for Coliseum. The serial killer, he calls himself the Archangel. I have a story for Smiling Jack. I have gladiators on the American side. There's Rachel and Kenny on that side, and then on the Confederate side, there are the characters there. And I also have the FBI agents and the other people involved in the search for the Archangel, and that's the main character, Victoria Morales. Blake Whitehouse is the FBI director, and Susan is an FBI agent. And so I started coming up with these characters, and that put me in a position to actually write the novel, the idea for which I'd come up with more than 10 years prior.
Amazing. Sounds like I'm watching Netflix. Okay, that's a beautiful word. So, what about this one? How does your passion for philosophy and social activism show up in your stories? Got it?
Well, it shows up in a sense that so if you think about the different genres of writing, like a murder mystery, for instance, in a murder mystery, the main thing that people who are fans of murder mysteries are looking for are all the things that you might learn about the criminal justice system or police procedure. A lot of times the detective is has a burden of some kind, like he or she didn't solve a mystery in the past. I mean, those are the types of things that fans of murder mysteries really look for. They're not going to talk about philosophy in a typical murder mystery or theology or anything like that, because that's not what the fans are looking for. Fans are looking for, if you have any opinions at all, it's going to be opinions about, criminals and law enforcement or poverty and stuff like that. And you have the same sort of parameters around science fiction, romance, historical fiction, because with historical fiction, the way historical fiction works is you have to have the author has a love for a particular period of history for a particular country. So people might like the Victorian era, or they might love, the ancients in ancient Greece or something like that. And so the information that's disseminated there has to do with that particular period. Whereas to your question about my background in philosophy, and I should mention that I earned my degree in philosophy from a Catholic university in New
Mm,
Orleans. And most of the people who were studying philosophy with me were going on to be priests. I mean, that wasn't my aspiration, but that's what the philosophy department at this Catholic university was actually intended for. You didn't have to, but that's the path that a lot of people took. So Coliseum explores issues of, uh, good and evil, explores people who aren't familiar with Christianity. How do they view Christianity versus people who are actually, churched, as we say. And so I have characters that actually have conversations like that in the novel. So even though there's a murder mystery aspect to the novel, they have to find this guy, or it could be a woman, but most of the time it's a guy who's committing these horrible murders. During the course of doing it, especially since the killer is doing it in the vein of Christianity, for on the basis using a lot of religious language, the people investigating the crimes they have to understand where this person is coming from. And so you have scholars. I have a character in the novel, a scholar who explains to the agents, well, this is real Christianity. This is what this person seems to believe, and this is what they mean when they said this or that.
mm. Ah, trying to comprehend that. You see, I would have to listen to our conversation again and again. So I figured that your audiobooks like Coliseum, Escape from New Orleans, and Dinner Invitation were narrated by other voice actors. But why are you narrating Emperor yourself on Substack?
Well, there are two reasons. One, the thing about Substack, there are a lot of people on Substack who were formerly on major American broadcasts, like they were formerly on CNN, Rick Acosta is on CNN, on Substack. Joy Reid is on Substack. There are a lot of people who are on Substack who were on, your cable news network before. The difference between the way they were on these networks, because they had executive bosses and so on and so forth, and there were certain expectations in terms of what your decorum would be. And Substack is on Substack is just them. So they get to be themselves. So authenticity is very important on Substack. So that's one reason I thought it was important that my fiction be in my voice. Now, I'm not performing it because I'm not a trained voice actor. Once I'm done with the novel, then I will hand it over to a cast of voice actors, and work with them to produce and act, the final product. But publishing it as I'm writing it. So that's the other reason why I'm recording it myself. One thing that I didn't expect to be true that turned out to be true, part of my writing process is I read my writing aloud as I'm writing it. That's one thing that I do. And so that's one thing. But up to now, I would just read it aloud. If I didn't feel comfortable with something, I would change it, then read it aloud, and then change it. But I didn't record that, though. And I've discovered that the process of recording the audio, and usually it's amazing, even though you wrote it, you have to basically give yourself a couple of takes to actually finish it. And then the post-production, I'm using Audacity to edit the audio. That process has become part of my writing process, because now you are making a commitment that I'm going to use this word versus that word, because you have to literally, like you're listening to the recording, you have a couple of different takes. You may have accidentally used a different word in one of those takes, and it makes you wonder, oh, wait a second, maybe that's the better word. Maybe that's the reason why I said it. It's going to be a recording that the world will hear. And so it really makes you take your choices seriously, and it's like a commitment to it. So that's become part of my writing process.
I got that, and that's a beautiful one. So finally, your books tackle topics like violence, entertainment, and the struggle between good and evil. So what message do you hope readers take away?
Well, there are a couple of things. Mainly what I hope people take away from that, especially living in the United States of America, because our society is sort of unusual in the sense that one way to think of it is almost like living in a haunted house, in the sense that a bad thing is going to happen, but you don't know when, you don't know where, and you don't know what it's going to be. And so even though you have people gunned down in churches, synagogues, movie theaters, there is no place in America where you can go to and think with certainty, I will not be killed here. That's just not possible. In this country, we train kindergartners, 6-year-olds, on what to do if a bad man breaks into your school and wants to kill all of you. So that's the country we live in. And the way we deal with that is we just have to go about our business. We have to go about our day, and we don't really know whether a bad thing is going to happen at the grocery store when we're there. It might not. And so the message that I want to take from that, and I deal with those issues in Coliseum, is that we can overcome these things. In Coliseum, you have a bunch of things that happen, and people overcome that situation. You can persevere in that, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
You can persevere in that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Profound words, and I got that. So I'm going to take that as a final thought, my man. So for folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, or even ask you questions, or make a purchase of your wonderful books, how can that be possible?
Well, like I said, I have the Substack. The Substack is very interactive. It's a combination of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. It's really a remarkable platform. That's substack.com, and you can just search for me, Henry L. Sullivan III. And also, I want to mention that my books are available as audiobooks on dozens of platforms. And so wherever you listen to music, or especially if you're on a platform, if you have access to a platform where you listen to both music and podcasts, If you search Henry L. Sullivan III, Coliseum, I'm probably there. And if the and the book may be available to you as part of what you're already paying, so you don't have to pay anything additional to use it. It's also available for people who have library cards in the US on platforms like Hoopla and Libby. Libby used to be Overdrive, but going back to the platforms that I mentioned, it's available on audiobooks.com, Storytell, it's available on Libro FM, Calm FM, just dozens of places. So really, the easiest way for me to explain, in addition to Amazon and Audible and stuff like that, BookBeat. So anyone in the world can have access to Coliseum. You just have to search Henry L. Sullivan III Coliseum, and it'll probably come up.
Beautiful. So that's gonna be the end of the show, Harry. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this stuff with us. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right.